It was 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, 2 days before the largest product launch we'd ever had in the company. I was walking our production line floor with two consultants who looked at me and said, all of your equipment is on the verge of catastrophic failure, and you need to shut it down immediately. The implications were hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue over the next couple of months. My mind raced. How could I have gone so wrong? How is everything imploding? I'm an utter failure.
It's 10 p.m., Thursday the 21st of December, 2017. My head of finance emails me, I need to see you tomorrow morning urgently. That's not good. Friday, 22nd of December, 2017, sat down with head of finance. He says we got our cash flow wrong. He said he's not sure why. He said we don't end the year with 1.4 million like we told the board. It might be closer to 600,000. He's not sure why. He thinks maybe our cash flow runway has moved up. It's probably not October 1st. It might be April 1st, but he's not sure. But I gotta build a store and open it in May in New York. I'm fucked.
Taking a break from all your work.
Welcome to the Emergency Beer Club.
What?
My name is Jason Bolt, and I am the founder and CEO of Revant.
I'm Emma. I'm the founder and, co-founder and CEO of Wildfang.
I've been an entrepreneur for over 8 years now, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, just mental health struggles during that time, whether it's isolation, anxiety. My identity became very closely tied to my business. If we were successful, I rode the highs. If we weren't, I rode the lows. And that became very challenging. And in fact, everyone in this room experiences that negative self-talk at one point or another. For entrepreneurs, it's even worse because we tie our value so much to our businesses. In fact, there's some sobering statistics here. 18.5% of adults in the US experience mental health illness in a given year. 32% of entrepreneurs struggle with 2 or more mental health conditions, almost double. Depression was present in 30% of all entrepreneurs. That's a much higher percentage than the US population at large, where only 7% identify as depressed. It's almost fourfold there. It's over fourfold. I think this is a critically important issue to discuss, because when you discuss it and normalize it, you can help neutralize it. And for me, that's been critically important during this process. I think the single biggest contributing factor to a company's success is the mental health of the founder.
Yeah. All right, given it's a fireside chat and I have a torn meniscus, I'm going to be sitting for the rest of this talk. You can blame the 24 female CEOs that I went down a river with in Idaho, 2 of which are in the room. So Jason and I feel pretty strongly about this topic, which is why we wanted to talk about it today. We've both been through some phenomenal highs, but some really brutal lows. And this concept that we came up with called the EBC, the Emergency Beer Club, is truthfully one of the few things that got us through it. So today we want to talk to you a little bit about that concept, a little bit about where it came from, why we need it, and what the rules are of the EBC. Because much like Fight Club, the Emergency Beer Club has rules. And then maybe, if you guys are lucky, you might get to be in the EBC, but we'll see. We haven't decided yet. So, as Jason said, we believe that, it's funny, we both come from we spend a lot of time with venture capitalists and investors, some of whom are in the room, love you guys, big shout out. But we feel like it's a fairly toxic culture, and you spend a lot of time lying, or spinning, or shining. And unfortunately, that has a huge impact on your mental health. As a first-time entrepreneur, you're normally going through things that you've never done before, hence why it's called a first-time entrepreneur. And really high highs, really low lows, and they're very unnatural situations where you don't have the skill sets or tools to cope. and that has a huge impact on your mental health. And at the same time, we both believe that mental health of a founder is probably the most important factor to determine the company's success. We both believe that. It's not a great idea. It's not even just the team. The health and mental health in particular of a founder, we believe, is the most important factor to that company's success. So today, we wanted to share with you a little bit of our inner voice. That voice that you all have, it's in your head. It never stops. You can hear it probably right now. It often commonly tells you that you're not very good. It expresses self-doubt. And it tends to show up when you're really in a bag of shit. And it's self-critical, and it's judgy, and it's harsh. And Jason and I have spent the last several years recognizing that voice and what it says and trying to cope with it and deal with it, which is where the Emergency Beer Club came from. And so that voice, we believe, is ultimately responsible for isolation, tragic incidences. I'm a part of a VC group in Vegas where 3 of my founders killed themselves. And it's something that we don't talk about, and we should talk about. So today we're going to talk about our inner voice, and we're going to do something really vulnerable. We're going to share our inner voice with you. And that's terrifying, but we're going to do it anyway. Which is why it's a beer club.
Helps.
Not kombucha club.
No. Although I love kombucha.
But shout out to Jamie and Ham. Whoop. Okay, so here's what we did. We did a little experiment, Jason and I. We challenged ourselves to write down. We printed out these very sophisticated pieces of paper from the interwebs that had a full week on it, Monday through Sunday. And we challenged ourselves to write down every shitty, judgy, self-doubt thought that we had for a whole week. And we wanted to share it with you, so here we go. All right.
There wasn't enough room on there, just to clarify.
Yeah.
So
you
I'll go ahead and
off?
start here. Yeah. So it started on Sunday, pretty early in the morning, going out to breakfast with friends. And this commonly comes up for me when I'm out with friends. One of them's up there, Evan. And I think to myself, I shouldn't be here. I need to be working on my business. I don't deserve a break. And to a degree, you think I don't deserve any sort of happiness until my business reaches success. Every entrepreneur will tell you this, that it's the grind, it's the grind. I've heard the term, as many people in here probably have, you can sleep when you die. It's a terrible term, by the way. But so that hit me 8 a.m. that morning, 10 p.m. that night. This is Sunday night, my weekends. You're lazy for stopping work before midnight. That happens. So this is the voice in the head. Let's see here. Tuesday, 10 a.m. I think I had just had a meeting. You suck at managing people. It's surprising your entire team doesn't quit. I was brutally honest here. I had to write everything down. This was part of the exercise. Let's see here.
Oh, so good.
So 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, I remember still being in the office. I think I was there pretty late that night. You'd be home relaxing right now if you were a barista. So you often crave hourly jobs when you're an entrepreneur because you never ever, there's no limit to how much you can work, really. There's no end to the day. So it's just this constant pressure to keep working.
I'm going to jump in. I'll save you. All right, my week starts off with you don't belong here. I think the second thought that followed that was you're not a real CEO. They were right back to back. Different pen, which meant it was later in the day. I, unlike Jason, didn't record the time. I did not get the full brief. You're not a good enough manager. What's really interesting is I was in LA opening a store. Our new store opened in LA on Monday. And apparently, thank you. Yeah, so apparently rather than thinking what a great job I'd done with opening a store in LA, I was thinking about how shitty a manager I was because I hadn't done a good enough job making our team feel really loved and special as they opened that store, which translated into Monday morning, which was be more inspirational. Jesus, Emma. That was my Monday, good start to the week. And then Tuesday, I actually flew to Canada to give a speech. that I felt like I fucked up. So I wrote, that speech was shit, you let everyone down. That was closely followed by, you wasted everybody's time today. So those are my 2 awesome thoughts in Canada.
Sure. It's hard to run through these. Okay. So I think the other ones I want to point out here, because this is something that I often hear from other entrepreneurs as well, is my thought at 1 p.m. on Saturday. So usually my Saturdays before I was an entrepreneur were very carefree. And now there's a lot of pressure again to keep working. But as you're experiencing failure, sometimes you think someone else can do a much better job at running this company, right? And that kind of goes back to my earlier comment.
Awkward defensive laughter over here.
I know. On Monday or on Wednesday, just thinking through, I have no background in business. If I had my MBA, that would equal respect. I'd have the knowledge I need. I could move faster. I'd be more motivating. So again, there's this sort of process that happens in your head, and this is just a week, and I didn't have enough room. I didn't record everything, but this gives you a sense for how many thoughts we have, and this is common. I don't want to say this is isolated to us, because I talk to other entrepreneurs, and this is a very common thing. So,
yeah, mine went on a little bit specific, like Jason's. I don't know how to fix this. I'm shit at finance. Obviously, I was feeling particularly awesome about finance as a function that day. And then wrapping up the weekend with, I'm fucked, why do I do this? Why do people even want to work for you? So similar thought. And then rounding out the week with just a pretty simple, I'm lonely, which is, I think, how a lot of CEOs and founders feel in their role, because you don't tend to share this stuff with the lecture theatre. That's new. So, yeah. So, now I feel a lot less lonely. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Now you all share our pain. Thank you. Yep. So now we've given you a sense for why the EBC is important and why what EBC really is community. It's someone to be open with, vulnerable with, someone to talk to, and connect with. But really defining what is the EBC. Well, for Emma and I, and it can be for others, it's one-on-one. So it's someone that's in a similar stage of life as you that you can connect with and talk with and be open with. And then when do you use it? Well, we just say when shit hits the fan. I mean, we're friends outside of that, but oftentimes, especially in our world, every day there's something new that goes wrong. So having someone that you can text or email or call to talk about that with is critically important. And then when is it available? Well, we've stuck to this, which is kind of crazy at times, but anytime. So it can be the middle of the night, it can be early morning, it can be whenever, when you're on vacation, and there has to be a response. And that builds the trust, that builds that level of like, someone has my back. There's a backstop to this.
But much like Fight Club, there are rules to the EBC. So let's talk about those rules, because they're super important. I'll kick it off. If you're not up shit creek, you buy the beer. It's really simple. Don't be that person that turns up at the EBC when things are going rosy for you and you don't buy the beer. You're immediately out of the EBC. Okay? If you're not up shit creek, you buy the beer.
The next one is no phone, no technology. This is really just no distractions, right? You have to be present. And I think presence is actually a key to mental health overall, being present, not being anxious, thinking about the future, what could be, thinking about the past, what was. It's being here and now and enjoying your time. So when you're one-on-one, when you're sharing that connection, get rid of all distractions. And I just recommend that in general.
Yeah. Okay, the next one's what makes the EBC different to all those other networking or mentoring or the call that you make to your board or your advisors or your mentors. In the EBC, what happens is you love and support the person opposite you. You do not solve their problems. You do not solve their problems. When Jason's manufacturing blew up, do you think he needed me to sit opposite him as someone who doesn't have any manufacturing background and be like, well, let me tell you the 4 things you did wrong there. Point 1. Like, no, he doesn't. By the time I've got him for a beer, it's at least 8 hours after the problem. He's smart as hell. He's already figured out the 46 things he shouldn't have done. It's not what he needs. It's not what he needs at that moment in time. What he needs is someone to listen to him and someone to love him. That's it, right? So in the EBC, you do not solve each other's problems. There's other people for that, and there's other avenues for that. You don't solve each other's problems.
All right, number 4, pretty straightforward, but trust is paramount. Trust is paramount. So don't lie. Don't cover things up. You don't need to shine on anything. You don't need to impress anyone. And that's part of the beauty, too, is that you can get comfortable enough that you can put all that shit out there and be honest.
No teals. A lot like Vegas, what starts in the EBC stays in the EBC. You never tell anyone else. I would never have told anyone Jason's manufacturing story if he hadn't just told you it himself. And we both have many of those incidences for each other. You can't tell another person ever. That's part of the trust of the EBC.
No judgment, too. This is pretty straightforward, but the idea is to sit and listen. Just be there. Be a person that can listen and not offer any criticism, because that comes from other areas, so we don't need it in the ABC.
And then last but not least, you got to follow up. That's the most critical rule of the EBC, okay? That means that when I've had a complete shocker, so for example, the incident I just shared with you where I hit a cash crunch and it was horrible and disappointing and embarrassing and a million other things. Jason and I went for a beer. I think we went to Bollywood that night. And we went for a beer, we had dinner, and he checked in on me like every 2 days for the next like 3 weeks. He was just like, yo, just checking in, how you doing, love you, EBC, that was it. And it was super important to me. It was super important to know that he hadn't just taken all this stuff vulnerably from me and then disappeared, He was like, still thinking about you, it's gonna be okay. So one of the most important things about the EBC is that you follow up.
All right.
This was a recent EBC. This was last night.
The rooftop of the new Revant building on the east side. Come by and visit.
Yes.
So now we've shared sort of this super secret society with you, what the rules are, what it's all about, how important it is. We've shed a light on how important community is to solving, I think, a lot of the mental health issues that everyone in this room faces. The connection is what matters. So now that we've shared that with you, we got to talk about how you get in.
Yeah, so one of our goals today is not just to talk about mental health. We think that's super important. We also want to pay it forward. So we want to make sure the EBC grows. So it's totally cool if you don't want to be a part of it. But if you do want to be a part of it, we have a little initiation for you. And it results in some good things after the initiation. So I've got 3 questions, and I'm going to make you work for it. So if you want to be in the EBC, I need you to stand up. Step 1. All right, it's a little bit like being in the exit aisle of a plane, all right? I need you to verbally agree. Are you prepared to be vulnerable and honest and vocal about the negative thoughts in your head? Yes. Good answer. Do you agree to make yourself available for an EBC meeting if and when another individual, entrepreneur, self-starter calls upon you? Yes. Are you prepared to uphold the rules of the EBC? Woo! Crank that!
Welcome.
Crank that! There's nothing quite like the Cheers theme music to make you feel good about your day. It doesn't matter if you failed all day. Okay, Jason and I are wearing 2 very important pins, all right? These little pins are the EBC pins, the Emergency Beer Club pins. And I've joked a lot today, but it's really serious, right? So when you're wearing an EBC pin, what it means is you are open to being that person for someone else. It means someone sees you and knows that you are there for them, you love them, support them, and you will talk to them about whatever negative voices in their head. So we have got, on both sides, we've got some EBC pins. If you stood up and took your commitment, you get one.
Grab that pin.
It's like Oprah, you get a pin, and you get a pin, and you get a pin. Guys, to the EBC.
Everybody knows your name.
Good job.
Wear those pins proudly.
All right.
Let's make sure Jordan gets one too.
I think we have a little bit of time. Where's Mitch at? For Q&A.
Jordan's in charge. There's no point asking Mitch. There's no point asking Mitch. Jordan's in charge.
Oh, Jordan. I'm asking Jordan. Sorry.
Heard it.
You're in charge.
Oh, there's a question.
Question in the back. Right there, you're looking in the back, right there, yeah.
Not yet, no.
But he is working on it, so it's really weird that you just called
Wow, we're being super vulnerable here. All right. God willing, someday. Yeah.
How do you try to carve out that personal time so that you don't burn yourself out? Do you have any systems or any, what do you do?
I do. Yeah, I would say when I first moved to Portland, it was all consuming. So I moved up from Eugene, that's where I was about 5 years ago, and I didn't really have a friend network here at all. So I spent a lot of time networking, which is a big part of the reason why I'm up here today, and just meeting great people. And through that, I started to develop routines where they would force me not to think about the business. So going mountain biking, starting a basketball team, these are things that are on my schedule now that pull me out of that mindset and that day-to-day and force me to focus, especially mountain biking, because if I don't, there's serious consequences. So I have that. I've started doing meditation, started doing that about 3 months ago. I've tried 16 times over the last 5 years, and I would say it's finally stuck. I finally understand it. Headspace, really great.
I was going to say Headspace, that was mine.
It's amazing. I mean, just if you haven't tried that yet, try it. For me at least, it was hard to realize the benefits until I stuck with it for at least 3 weeks. And then I would notice a difference as I'd do it before work, and I'd go in and I'd be a better manager. And I would do it midday before big meetings, and I'd run the meeting. I'd be present. I keep coming back to this idea of presence. So for me, it's not that I am working, I would say, a little bit less, but I'm more present. So I'm not anxious. I don't have that sort of like anxiety about me that I did in the past. And I take time for my mental health or physical health as well. So for me, part of that too was making sure it was ultra convenient. So I built a gym in my garage and bike to work as much as possible.
I was going to say Headspace as well. If you haven't used that app, you should use it. I use it every lunchtime for 5 minutes, and it's like a game changer for me. And then the other one for me is a gratitude journal. I can be really judgy and really self-critical and critical of others. So for me, what I do with the gratitude journal is try to write down, I would love to say I do it every day. I don't do it every day. I do it like once or twice a week. I write down what I'm really grateful for, and it allows me to turn a really shitty, judgy conversation into something really positive. So those are two like very executional things for me.
Anyone else? Get you right there.
Hi, thanks so much. That was really great to hear. I am a sole founder, right? So I can readily understand the need for such a club or connection. It's really interesting to me that as a co-founder, Emma, you still think, there's good forum for them. Could you just unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
Because, I mean, I can understand maybe some of the arguments, but for someone who might seek a co-founder, it's good to understand what you're doing.
Yeah, so I can only speak to my personal experience. My co-founder left the business after 2 years through mental health struggles, and it was the right thing to her to do, and she's super happy and she's super successful. But so I had a co-founder for 2 years, and then not for the last 3. Even when I had a co-founder, I would say the role of CEO is really special. The shit ultimately still lands on your desk, even with a co-founder. One of you still has 51% of the say, 51% of the business. Like it still ultimately lands with you. So I think a co-founder can God, don't get me wrong, couldn't have got there without her, but there's still a loneliness that comes from being a CEO that I think is important to recognize. I would say that, I guess I can come at this 2 ways. Even if you have a co-founder, this is critical because not only does ultimately you're the decision maker as CEO, but in addition to that, there's stuff you just don't want to talk to your co-founder about. Like, it's really hard sometimes to admit that like you've completely fucked up on something, or you're not good enough, or you're scared. Like, sometimes the last thing, it took me a long time to talk to my leadership team about being scared of things or not being good enough at things, because I thought they had to just see me as this like fierce, ferocious, confident leader, So what Jason offers me is something completely outside of Wildfang. And again, back to that point that I felt so strongly about is no problem solving. He's not solving my problems. He's just listening. He's just allowing me an avenue to say it out loud. And once it's out loud, You can see it. It's very Buddhist, you know. You can see it. It's not scary anymore. It's separate from you. You can assess it. And then you realize that actually the outcome wasn't that terrifying. It wasn't that terrifying to say it out loud. It wasn't that bad. So I still think even if you have a co-founder, having something outside of the business, and it's great to have your family and friends who just reinforce love, but this is different. He's been there, you know, he knows it. So he knows how terrified I am in some of those moments and can still love and accept me through it. So I think even with a co-founder, this has been critical for me.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.